Releasing Trauma is sponsored by the Global Association for Trauma Recovery. The Global Association for Trauma Recovery is a social impact organization serving as a resource for survivors and their families, dedicated to facilitating change by spreading trauma-related awareness and thus creating a more trauma-informed world. Learn more at gaftr.org. Welcome to Releasing Trauma, a Survivor's Podcast. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. I am a survivor of emotional bullying, rape, sexual assault, domestic abuse, and grief. After losing my husband in 2019, I set off on a new adventure to help other women release their trauma and create a life they can cherish. Each week, I will feature a guest expert or a survivor to share their stories, tips, wisdom, and more. The goal is so that you can take away even just the smallest nugget of information you can use in your life right now to make a change, and to remind you that you're not alone. There is life after trauma, and you can move from victim to thriver and create a life you can cherish. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is your host, Tracy Osborne, and with me today is Jillian Amodio. We are going to be talking about the baby blues, postpartum depression. So, Jillian, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This is a really important topic because, having a baby is supposed to be such an exciting time. And, you've got this new little bundle of joy that is counting on you, depending on you. And nobody really tells you or prepares you for the postpartum depression that can hit.
Yeah, they don't. And it comes as a complete shock. I've met a couple people who say, oh yeah, my mom warned me about it, or my midwife warned me about it. But more often than not, it comes out of nowhere, and you have no preparation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't we start with having you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah. So I have two kids. And fortunately, we're past that postpartum depression period now. But I remember it, like it was yesterday because it was so traumatic. My kids are now, I have a daughter who is 10 and a son who is 6. And when I first had my daughter, I was 21, and, at that age, I feel like you don't know much about much anyway.
Right.
And sorry.
I said, right.
Oh yeah. It's just you're a baby yourself. So my husband and I were, super excited, and we just in our heads were like, we are going to be the best parents, and we are going to be the coolest parents. So this baby is going to just have like a lit life. And I remember even throughout my pregnancy, as things progressed, I could already tell like anxiety was building. And I was like, oh, it's probably just because this is my first baby. Like that has to be normal, right? I've never done this before, so anxiety is normal. And I literally remember when my daughter was born, my mom was the first person, in the room besides myself and my husband. And I looked at her and just started crying. And I said, is she supposed to look like that? And my mom was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't know. Her face looks squished. I must have done something wrong. And in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, I had a glass of champagne the night before I found out that that I was pregnant. So in my head, I was like, I ruined my baby. She's broken. And my mom was like, she looks like a baby. Like she's fine. Don't worry about it. And then I remember the night I had a C-section. So I was in the hospital for, I think, 3 nights. And I just remember the second day, all I did was cry. Like literally every waking moment, I was just in tears. And that's what one of the nurses said. She was like, oh, it's the baby blues. It's okay. But deep down, I felt this sense of despair because the tears I was crying weren't those tears of joy that you see so many other new moms crying. They were literally tears of despair because I truly felt in that moment that the universe had made a mistake. They made me a mom. I didn't deserve to be a mom. This baby was not going to be taken care of or loved to the degree she deserved, because I just didn't think I was capable. It's not that I didn't love that baby. I loved that baby so much that in my heart, I felt like she deserved more than me. Um, and I don't think those feelings ever really went away. I just didn't know what I was experiencing. And I don't even think I had the words to articulate the depths of despair I was feeling. Um, and I think I was so confused and so overwhelmed and so just lost in this cloud and this fog of postpartum depression that I couldn't even reach out and say, like, hey, I'm struggling, because I was just so lost in my own head. And I remember, going home, and my husband was home for, maybe 5 days before going back to work. And the very first morning he went to work, I took the baby out. We were going to go on a walk in a stroller. And as I got the stroller out of my car, her head wobbled. Not like, I didn't almost drop her, her head wasn't flopping all over the place, but just her head wobbled, as newborns do. And in that moment, I was like, that's it. I've broken her. Her head is going to fall off her neck. I don't deserve to be this baby's mom. I'm not taking care of her. I'm not protecting her. And I literally sat down on the curb and I just sobbed. And this older gentleman came jogging by, and I can't even imagine what this poor man just like stumbled upon. But he walks up and he's like, you don't look okay. And I said, I'm not. I can't be a mom. And he was like, oh, well, it looks like you are a mom. So what do you mean you can't be a mom? And I was like, I just don't feel like I can take care of this baby. I'm so overwhelmed and I feel like she deserves better. And he's like, you know what? I bet you have a mom. Can I call your mom for you? Which I didn't even think about it in the moment, but that was just such a beautiful representation of humanity. Like someone to go, you know what? This person's suffering. I bet they have a mom who can help. And he did. He called my mom. My mom came over, and she took us on a walk, and she got everything under control for a little while. But I even remember at our 6-week appointment, which just seems crazy to me that we don't even talk to anybody postpartum for 6 weeks. But at my 6-week postpartum appointment, they hand you that sheet of paper, and it's like, do you feel like hurting yourself? Do you feel like hurting your baby? Are you crying more often than not? It's like all of these questions, and you're like, yes, 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 yes. But then your head is going, but what happens if I check those boxes? Is my baby going to be taken away?
Right.
Am I going to be, seen as a bad mother? Is my dirty little secret going to be aired? So I didn't check any of those boxes. And I was literally crying in their office. And they're like, oh, yeah, new motherhood's hard. I bet you're tired. And I was sent on my way. And I literally suffered postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety for well over a year with my first. And then I don't even know that it ever went away. It just kind of faded into like anxiety, constant anxiety, constant paranoia. I was just terrified something was going to happen to my baby and my child. Fortunately, when I had my second, 3.5 years later, he, I always say my first is my practice child. I mean that lovingly, but it's like she taught me some things. But immediately with him, I knew it was more severe, because I started having the suicidality. I started planning, and I, got to the point where I was like, you know what, these kids deserve so much better. It's not getting better the second time around. Clearly, they need somebody else. They need somebody better. And the best way for me to do this is to not be here, because if I'm here on this earth, they are going to seek me out, and they deserve someone better. So I had a notebook, and I was literally planning everything. I had a date planned. I have methods planned. I was writing letters for different, days throughout the years, their birthdays, Christmases, special events, whatever. It got exceptionally dark, while other parents were watching their children play at the park, smiling and just enjoying watching their kids. I was sitting there looking completely normal, but I had a notebook in my hand, and I was literally just documenting and writing and planning so that my kids could have a better life without me. And I think it was really a combination of my sister, my mom, and one of my very close friends. And then eventually my husband, who was like, you know what, something's not right. Something's going on. And they wouldn't let me off the hook. And the more they talked, the more those barriers broke down. And the more questions they asked, the harder it was to lie about it. And eventually, I sought out help with a therapist. I did a brief stint on medication. But the biggest thing I found helpful was not only time, but talking, and then also seeing a homeopathic doctor who helped me balance my hormones. And she had said that one of the biggest things she sees in new moms is their hormones are all over the place, and yet they continue to wonder why they don't feel like themselves. And she's like, of course you don't feel like yourself. Your brain is all over the place. And it was literally like night and day. She balanced my hormones naturally. And then I was like, oh my God, life is good again. I feel good. I'm calm. I'm happy. Um, yeah, so it was a journey, and it was a scary journey. And I just don't want anyone to feel like they're alone, or to feel shame that the only thing the only thing they feel when they look at their baby is, overwhelming sadness, because of course you want to feel overwhelming joy. And postpartum steals that from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had 4 kids. I've never had postpartum to that degree, thankfully.
Yeah.
But I think everybody gets it to a point because, like you said, your hormones are adjusting. They're trying to go back to normal. And it's like puberty on steroids. You're a mess.
Exactly.
You're an absolute mess. And on top of that, you're sleep deprived. You've got this little tiny baby that you have to take care of. And it's just a recipe for disaster.
It is, and I just don't think the support is there. They always say, "Oh, if you're struggling, reach out." But like I said, some of us don't even know how to articulate what we're feeling, or we're so overwhelmed that we can't reach out. And the support and the screening that is available more often than not is just so impersonal, or not available at all.
Right. And then there's that stigma of, okay, well, if there's something wrong with me, then I'm not fit to be a mom.
Yes.
Um,
what kind of mother feels like her children would be better off without her?
Right. Yeah. And and the thing is listeners, if you've gone through this, you're going through this, somebody, you're not alone. I mean, this postpartum depression happens every day to people to varying degrees. So what are some of the signs that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, I mean, some of the signs are just, not sleeping, but you're like, yeah, so is having a baby. Not sleeping, lack of appetite, lack of interest in your baby, which is a hard one because people don't want to admit, like, I look at the baby and I feel complete disinterest. But that's nothing to be ashamed of. It's
Right.
literally a symptom of postpartum depression. Sadness, overwhelming sadness, thoughts of hurting yourself, thoughts of hurting your baby, extreme anxiety, paranoia, even things like pain, like headaches can be, a symptom of it.
Just that overall feeling that something's not right.
Things not right. And when our intuition is there for a reason, and mother's intuition is very real. And when you feel like something is not right, something's not right. And it's okay to reach out and say, like, hey, I don't have the words exactly, but I know something's not exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely. Who do they call? Should they call their doctors? Do they call a therapist? Yeah, I mean, who should be the first person that you reach out
It
to
can be
if
so
something's not
overwhelming.
right?
Right. So I think that, and it's going to vary for everyone, especially with who they feel comfortable with. Especially, I mean, some people have traumatic birth experiences, and the last
Very
person I
true.
want to talk to is the doctor who helped deliver, and that's a valid concern, and that's okay. So there's a lot of people you can reach out to. You can reach out to your OBGYN, you can reach out to your midwife or your birthing center. You can reach out to a postpartum nurse. Some health insurances actually have postpartum nurses you can actually call as well. There's even postpartum doulas, which a lot of people don't even know exist. Even if you didn't have a doula to help with the birthing process, there are postpartum doulas who will help care for mother and baby postpartum. You can reach out to a therapist. You can reach out to places like Postpartum International. And you can reach out to your family, your friends, your support system, your spouse, your partner. These are people that typically want to help support you and want to help make sure you are getting what you need. And it can be embarrassing, and it can feel like a sign of weakness to reach out and say, hey, I'm not doing okay. Can you help? But it's not a weakness to struggle. It's a sign of strength to be able to say, I'm not okay. Can you help me be okay?
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a very strong person to admit to another person that something's wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because of all the fear and stigmas and shame and guilt and everything associated with it.
Absolutely.
And I think we put way too much pressure on ourselves as new moms to be perfect.
It's not only personal pressure. Because what mom at some point in their life doesn't question, am I a good mom? Our pediatrician used to joke sometimes. She'd say, it's always the ones who wonder if they're a good mom that I always say you're the best. But it's not only that personal pressure, it's also the societal pressure. Everything that society tells us about motherhood is happy and beautiful and idyllic and just so picture perfect that when your real life experience of motherhood doesn't match that societal image, you start to question yourself and go, well, what is wrong with me? What did I do wrong?
And, more often than not, your image of motherhood is not going to match what society projects.
Oh my gosh, no. Absolutely not.
It's messy, it's dirty, it's, it's not.
It's hard. It
is very hard.
Battle. My mom always jokes. She's like, yeah, I think that your brain has a weird way of just making you only remember the good things. She's like, because looking back, I swear it was easy. And I'm a triplet and we were born early. And I was like, I highly doubt that your postpartum period was easy.
Yeah, that had to have been fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I used to always joke and say that I wanted twins until I got pregnant with my first one.
Oh my gosh.
Then I'm like, no, I can only do one at a time.
Mothers of multiples are just like, superheroes, because even just one at a time, you're like, oh my gosh. They send you home with this little baby. And my husband and I joke about that often. We remember, getting wheeled out of the hospital in the wheelchair, and they help you get in the car and buckle the baby in, and they shut the door. And he's like, oh, wait, no one's coming with us. What do we do?
Right. Now what do we do?
Exactly. So, postpartum period is, even for those who don't experience postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety, it's still a time of great transition and a time of great learning. And I always like to say that it's easy to forget that the baby is not the only thing being born. The entire family unit is born, and the entire identity of the mother is born anew. And that life of the new mother deserves to be cultivated and cared for and tended to just as much as the life of that brand new baby. The woman existed before, absolutely. But that identity of mother is so brand new. And, it's like getting reacquainted with yourself all over again.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And, something that I want to mention too is that it is possible to have postpartum depression with one baby and not have it with another.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you have baby number one and everything was smooth sailing and, hunky dory, and then baby number two comes along and all of a sudden it's not, that's perfectly normal.
Absolutely. And it doesn't mean that you love one child more than another. It doesn't mean that you used to be a good mom and for some reason a flip switched and you're not. It is totally out of your control when these things happen. And, you wouldn't blame yourself for having a traumatic birth that required surgery or required extra recovery physically. So when we have these problems that arise with our mental health after birthing a baby, there's also no reason to feel ashamed or to be concerned about reaching out for help. I know the stigma is still there to some degree, but I think the best thing to do is just to keep talking openly about it and remove that stigma just brick by brick.
Absolutely. By, having people like you come on to podcasts and speak out about your experience, that's the best way to start removing that stigma and to just let these moms know that you're not alone. You will be okay, and it's okay to ask for help.
Oh, it definitely is. And you know, I think it's important to know it sometimes it is impossible in the moment to see or to believe or to trust that things are going to get better. Um, but they do, and it takes time and it's not an overnight fix. Even if someone decides to go on, you know, an antidepressant, it's still not an overnight fix. That takes time to work through. And I think one of the most cathartic things now for me is because I always say with both of my children, the entire first year was stolen from me. Postpartum depression was so awful that literally that entire first year was
Mm.
just ripped. Um, but when I look back at family videos, my kids love to watch family videos of themselves. And when I look back, I'm like, you know what? It's proof right there. I was a good mom. I was present. I was playing with them. I was laughing. I was holding them, hugging them, loving them. So even
Mhm.
though in the moment my brain was telling me, you're a terrible mother, your kids will be better off without you, you should go kill yourself so your kids can have a better life, that wasn't what I was showing my children. And I think to see that to some degree helps heal those wounds because I see in live action, I was there with them. I was loving them. I was present. I was involved. And my kids were happy. My kids are happy.
Right. Well, Jillian, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, and talking with us about this. It's
Absolutely.
definitely something that we need to bring a bigger awareness to.
Of course. Thank you so much. And if anybody is struggling, please reach out. It's one day of suffering is too much for any new mom.
Absolutely. And Jillian, how can people reach out to you?
Oh, yeah. So I run Moms for Mental Health, www.momsformentalhealth.com. And we're based in Maryland, but we do help kind of match people with providers or resources or services nationwide. So, yeah, reach out and we'll get you connected and we'll let you
Awesome.
know you're not alone.
Awesome. And listeners, I'll have all her links in the show notes. Just go to releasingtraumapodcast.com, pull up Jillian's show, and all her contact information will be there. So, Jillian, thank you again for coming on the show. And
Thank you.
listeners, thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you in the next show.